Greetings sailors, welcome back to World of Warships and another Yoshino game because it's a decent game I had and also a bit more of a sensible game compared to the last replay I showed you. I think this is probably much more how one is supposed to play the Yoshino and by extension the Azuma, because they are pretty much the same ship. I think this has and I mentioned this last time, it's got more deck armour basically and those 20-kilometre torpedoes, which you will see a little bit get used in this one, but this is much more about basically throwing around HE at longer ranges. Although there will be some longer range AP use as well. If you've got a sufficiently squashy target, then these battleship caliber guns will still hit pretty hard. But for the most part I was deliberately trying to test out using HE rather more, and also just keeping my distance, trying not to get targeted too much, trying not to take too many hits, and it did kind of work out. Maybe I could have been a bit more aggressive towards the end of the game, but well, you'll see how things work out. You can judge for yourself. This is a fairly even split of our team. I think there's slightly more have gone to the other flank, but we do have our carrier actually concentrating their attention over here, although it's only tier 8 carriers in this game, so not quite as potent as if they'd been tier 10 carriers. And although I could go on about carriers a bit, there is a lot, there's a lot of comment at the moment, or there has continuously been comment about carriers since the rework, and it's not really a surprise, it was a major change. But my issues at the moment are less with carriers themselves than how AA works, or in some cases doesn't seem to work. There was a very interesting discovery by Little White Mouse. Well, not just Little White Mouse, there's been other people who have thought AA's been hinky as well, but she actually did what she does and sat down and figured out some numbers through mind-numbing testing over and over and over again, which is why most people don't have the patience to do it, but she does. This is why a lot of these discoveries are at least publicised by her. Like I say, she wasn't the only person to notice that the AA was being a little bit strange. But I'm not really going to talk about carriers and AA in this game. It's not really going to be germane to how the thing turns out exactly. So rather than go up the 10 line as the Lion and the Hindenburg seem set on doing, I'm just going to keep floating around at the back here, weaving back and forth and trying to see how the HE performs. That really was my goal with this particular game. When you're testing ships like this, sometimes you don't necessarily play in the optimal way, but in this case I think this is probably a lot closer to the optimal way than getting in the middle and relying on battleships firing HE at my broadside and just generally derping out and eating a lot of torpedoes that they don't know I have. Because, you know, that's not exactly a guaranteed strategy. Not a lot of damage so far though, and no fires or anything. I could lay down some torpedoes at this point, but yeah, it wouldn't be a good idea. 20-kilometre torpedoes, you are going to have to be really careful when you use them, especially if you are playing the more cautious game when you're a bit further back and trying not to be on the front lines, because that means, generally speaking, well, hopefully there will be teammates, tankier teammates, ahead of you. And they're not going to appreciate getting a swarm of 20-kilometre, 20k damage torpedoes up the butt. And in this case, it would be the Lion that really wouldn't appreciate it. Although that Lion has gone way too aggressively up through the decap. I'm not quite sure why they've charged in like that, but it is going to be their undoing. We've got the other Lion and the Hindi still on the 10 line, not being quite as aggressive, although that other Lion is not in a great position, but I think they're probably getting away with it just because everyone else is concentrating on the Lion that's north of D. My immediate concern is, though, that Conqueror that's turned up. They are backing up, though, and they are, well, were firing at the line. In fact, they've got the kill on the line. But either the AP or the HE ammo could really do me a nasty, so I absolutely don't want to get too close, and less than 12 kilometers is actually feeling rather uncomfortably too close. So we're going to turn away and hope that I have enough time in the interval when they have to bring their guns around, but they do actually get a hit off, although it's fortunately not that bad. But it was AP, so well, HE still would have been nasty. HE would have set some fires, but it's good to know that this isn't a Conqueror player that exclusively uses one type of ammo, regardless of the circumstances. And you know, you can equally say that about a battleship player that only ever exclusively uses AP shells. Occasionally there will be a call for using HE, but with British battleships it's, you know, very often exclusively the other way around. So that Zhao's manoeuvring has brought them right smack bang into one of my torps, which is very nice for me. I think that's my one and only torp hit for this entire game. This Fletcher here, by the way, renamed user and the string of numbers. I didn't save the score screens for this, but I'll tell you right now, this Fletcher did very well. This Fletcher is going to end up on the top of our team, and I think I was either second or third, I really can't remember. But that Fletcher, you know, went in, basically got the cap. I mean, they didn't particularly have radar to worry about because the enemy Des Moines has been hanging rather far back. I mean, they've been pushed back a bit, I guess, by the Lion and the Hindi, who have continued to push up that side. But, oh, there we go. Nice long-range Citadel on that Neptune. So, they have been maybe making that Des Moines a bit on the nervous side, and they've backed off. And the Conqueror's actually now retreating a little bit as well. On the other side of the map, it looks like we are getting some decent movement going. I mean, I got my first kill on that Zhao, which was nice, but I think most of the other enemy ships that have died have been on the other flank so far. So at the moment, we're pretty much just keeping this flank contained. I mean, we've got the cap. The enemy team's lost their destroyers. Our Fletcher is, in fact, the last destroyer left. And so they do look also set to lose control of the ACAP as well. So the fact that we've taken and held this, the fact that they've lost a bunch of ships, I mean, even though we've lost the Hindenburg, we are going to lose that other Lion. It's maybe not going to matter that much because our team seems to be getting some pretty good momentum on the other flank. And because I have not exactly been charging into the thick of it, I still have reasonably high health. There we go, it's another nice kill on that Neptune, and I can back off if need be. The enemy carrier is, however, paying a bit of attention to me now at this point. These look like they're going to be coming for me, unless he's brave enough to try dropping on the Fletcher, although the Fletcher has actually smoked up. Sometimes that can almost be the worst idea, because you're then sat in the smoke and potentially, with torp bombers anyway, potentially you invite somebody just making a drop, and it looks like that Lexington actually did try to make a drop blind, but they didn't commit their entire attack, and so they've made an awkward rear drop on me, and it's not that hard to actually dodge it. But because I've got defensive going, because this is tier 10 AA versus a tier 8 carrier, I wasn't really that worried anyway. I have had, I mean, in that previous game I showed you, you saw me shoot down, what, 40 odd planes. I have had some reasonably good results with the AA on this ship. It does seem to perform quite well overall, but in this game it really wasn't that much of a factor. So I'm just waiting for something to be spotted at the moment. My own concealment isn't great, but of the ships on, well, the enemy ships that are left that could outspot me, I think it's basically the Des Moines. So given where they are, I really don't have to worry about them. That Lion on the 10 line is still somehow alive, and actually just hit the Missouri for quite a big chunk of damage. I can't remember if that Lion actually survives, having said, implied heavily that they were going to die, but I'm sure they do. but we've hit a stage of the game where it doesn't really matter. Now, it was a bit risky maybe unmasking myself like that, but I'd positioned myself such that, yeah, I could just get behind an island. They are now focusing on that lion, and I can now get a bit of distance, try and set another fire on the Missouri. I mean, at this angle, even the AP might have done some work. I think he's reversing there past Jedi. Yeah, although I might still get some hits. It takes a while to slam a battleship into reverse. But, and there we go. Otherwise, you know, in terms of points, we're really getting down to it if I want to do some more damage. And this is maybe the stage where actually, yeah, I could have just turned in, weathered some hits, gone towards the enemy, stopped playing quite so cautiously, and tried to get some more damage out of it, because we've basically won. We're pushing now way through the A-cap, and this is basically the last couple of enemy ships left. I'm not even aiming at the Missouri at this point. I don't know why it's showing me being locked onto the Missouri. That's a little replay bug, but I know my fire is going to kill him if somebody else doesn't get the kill. But even though somebody else does try for it, no, it is in fact my fire that gets me the third kill. Over 100k damage, nothing particularly special, and it's only actually been 3 fires. I really wish I could have that I had kept the score screens for this, so that I could have seen what proportion of fire damage that I did do. I don't think it would have been that much, but yeah, even just with the hits I was getting with HE at longer range, it's still a good couple of thousand to go. Because you're faster firing than a battleship, even though you've got fairly big guns, it's not a bad fire setter. I mean, it's not Zhao or a Worcester or anything like that, but if you are persistent enough, you do have a good enough fire chance with these shells that yeah, it will do the work. But you're not going to be setting multiple fires with ease necessarily like you would with a faster firing cruiser. So trying out a little bit of AP before the end. It's an angled ship, so it's not really the best use of ammo for that Conqueror, but I think I was hoping that Des Moines would come round the corner to where I could get clear shots. If I'd started north, you know, like 2 minutes ago, I might actually be in a position to hit that Des Moines at this point, but as it is, no, we're going to run out the timer, and there we go, with the Lexington actually dying. That is the end of the game. So as I said, it was the Fletcher that ended up being top of the team. It surprised me slightly at the time, but I wasn't necessarily 100% paying attention to what they were doing at all times, but clearly they did quite well for themselves. And with the result I got, even though it was all basically firing at range, it was still second or third place on the team. And it was fairly conservative play. I mean, up to the point where it didn't need to be, it was still conservative play. But yeah, it worked out rather nicely, and so you know, this is how I'll be playing the Azuma, and if I end up getting this ship, the Yoshino, at some point, it's how I'll be playing that as well, because it just seems to be where it works best. So that's it for oh god, I hope not the only video this week, but we'll see, brain permitting. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, you can do all the usual things down underneath it, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.